Hey guys, it's me, Alan M., and today I wanted to talk about The Batman, because this is probably my new favorite superhero movie. Just in general, this movie really was a masterclass of production and scale, and we saw things that I've just never seen in any superhero movie before, but we're going to get into the specifics about that, because, wow. For the first time in cinema history, Bruce Wayne's actually a character. He goes beyond the interpretations of just being a Batman. And we delve into the psyche of what that means. And I've just never seen that done in film before. Because every other Batman movie is about everybody else except for Batman. But this is finally a Batman movie about Hey guys, before we get to the review, I just wanted to mention Dr. Squatch made Batman soap, and it's really good and smells really great. So be sure to check that out on Dr. Squatch's website. Alright, back to the video, guys. So without further ado, guys, here's my official review of The Batman. Be warned, there will be spoilers. Okay, so it's no secret that The Batman is one of my favorite comic book characters of all time. I've played the Arkham games. I was there when Ben Affleck became Batman. And now I'm here when Robert Pattinson has become the Batman. And wow, what a wild roller coaster it's been. So my opinions on the Batman franchise as a whole are I love the 1989 Michael Keaton film. I think it's one of Tim Burton's strongest movies, and it just really works for me. I'm not as big of a fan of 1992's Batman Returns because I think the movie's just really grimy and gross and goes into territories that makes me uncomfortable for a superhero franchise. I really like the vibrancy and flamboyancy of Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. It's like a kid's commercial come to life. And I love the dark and grounded, serious world of the Nolan trilogy. My only problem with those movies come from the weak villains, a franchise stable that every film in that franchise is a victim of. I just don't like Ra's al Ghul. I'm not a fan of Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker, and I think Bane was one of cinema's weakest villains. And then we got to the Dark Age, the Snyder era of the character. And at the time, I worshipped the ground that Batman v Superman walked in. But now that we're past this era and he's not my only Batman, I can proudly say that is the worst movie in the Batman filmography. It's just not good. The one good thing about the Snyder era, I will say, is it has given us my favorite interpretation of the Joker, the one that Jared Leto brings to the screen. And while it's currently tied with Jack Nicholson for being my favorite Joker, I think The Batman may really give that a run for its money because it's no secret that was Joker who was the Arkham prisoner kept in the shadows at the end of the movie. And I'm really excited to see what this universe has to say about him. Because on the one hand, we have gotten a lot of Joker content in the past couple of years. He was the villain of The Dark Knight. He's the villain of the Arkham games. He's the villain in the Joaquin Phoenix movie that came out a couple years ago. And since then, we've also had the Jared Leto version of the character. But despite it all, I still really love this character. And despite it all, Matt Rev and company have really done something special with the Batman that I trust their interpretation, and it may end up blowing Jared Leto away at being the best on-screen Joker that we've seen so far, and I'm really excited to see where that could go. In terms of cinematography, this is one of the most well-shot movies that I've seen in a while, and it makes me kind of hate every other superhero movie that's come out over the past 10 years. Remember when these movies were movies and they weren't just products put out just to hold your attention? And as much as I love the Marvel Cinematic franchise, I just can't help but wonder what it would have been like had we had actual creators back there this entire time. Because even Marvel's most creative films and creative personnel like James Gunn and Taika Waititi, these movies still all look the same. They all have soap opera-esque film quality to them. and they're just not lit well, and everything sucks. Whereas the Batman, even in its darkest moments, is still beautiful and gorgeous to look at. And because of that, it's exhilarating. The other thing I really loved is the sparse use of action throughout the film. It's not relied on, and it works organically in the story. I hate to compare it to Marvel, but in the way that Marvel storyboards their action scenes before they even have a plot, making these things feel shoehorned in. Whereas in The Batman, it works organically. And it's all the more exhilarating because it's not boring. It's something that makes sense and drives the story forward. Action should be a tool, not the sole purpose that we're here. And as much as I love the Batman's action scenes, that's not what kept me engaged. What kept me engaged were characters thinking about things that I found very important. And I thought that was beautiful and very well done. And the acting in this movie is very impressive. Robert Pattinson has come a long way since his days of being the sparkling vampire Edward Cullen in the Twilight franchise. As well as Colin Farrell gives a very comedic performance as the Penguin. And that's the other thing I really love about this movie, the use of comedy. Whereas Marvel jokes feel focus group tested, and the movie comes screaming to a halt in order for the movie to tell these jokes, this movie works in service of them. And the jokes aren't coming from having somebody sitting there just making jokes about the situation, but just awkward real-life timing. They're the type of jokes that could happen in the real world, whereas the Marvel jokes, it would feel like hanging out with the writers of Community for an afternoon. Not that I don't love Community, but, I mean, guys, come on. Another piece of the action that I thought was exquisitely well done would be the Batmobile. This might be my favorite on-screen Batmobile of all time, and it really felt like the car from John Carpenter's seminal film, Christine, come to life. The car had a mind of its own, and I really thought that was a nice added detail to the film as a whole. Overall, this film is a brooding masterclass in deception and darkness. Gotham's grungy and greasy, but you still want to stay there for an afternoon. You want to live in this world for a little bit longer, and at just over 3 hours, by the time this movie clocks out, you feel like you've binged an entire season of a TV series. But at no point was it boring. And I really think The Batman might rival some of the greatest films of all time, like Twister and Breaking Bad, and in terms of building tension and having moments that genuinely make your heart drop and stop. And it kept me engaged, and I really loved these characters. Bruce Wayne, we see a side to him that we've never seen before. Usually in Batman movies, he's got it figured out. But in this one, you can tell he's a broken kid trying to act his way out of the world. As well as this, you understand why this Gotham City needs the Batman. No amount of money that Bruce can donate would save this city, especially when we have his parents' funneling money to people like Carmine Falcone and Maroni, taking advantage of these situations. It's really fucked up what's happening in Gotham City in this movie, and Batman realizes he has a character arc where he needs to become Hope. That's something we've never seen in a Batman movie before, and I really liked taking the time to explore that. And I really think a sequel will give us the Playboy Bruce Wayne that we all know and love, but it's about building to that and why he has to have that. But this has become my definitive version of the character. It embodies everything I know and love. And that's why The Batman is a masterpiece.
So I finally got to see The Batman, and honestly, it was a lot scarier than I expected it to be. Riddler was kind of like, a phantom in the dust, and I'm not going to spoil it, but the little tease at the end with Riddler's new best friend, I couldn't be happier. So back to you, Alan. Honestly, it's up there with Twister for me. I'd also like to, throw out a quick shout out to our sponsor, Dr. Squatch, for sending us these incredible new The Batman soaps. They smell great and they feel good too.